This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Soumya and I'll be your host for this session. I will just quickly introduce you to Tech Canvas and what do we do. So, we are basically an IT certifications training organization for professionals where we help students to crack their certification exams in first attempt. We are IIBA endorsed and PMI authorized. So we provide certifications training for ECBA, CBAP, CCBA, Agile, Business Data Analytics, and for project management certifications into PMP, CAPM. We also have domain training into banking, finance, healthcare, and many more. Today's session is for all the CBAP and CCBA aspirants. We have Satish with us who will be taking us through the case study based and scenario based questions that comes in the exam. So he is CBAP certified business analyst with 12 plus years of experience in business analysis and product management. He has worked on large system implementation projects across verticals like retail banking, telecommunication, incentive compensation, taxation, and software license management. Satish, over to you. I would request you to take this session ahead, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Soumya. So hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar, which is related to the case study based questions. So I believe most of you guys are planning for CBAP certification, because if you are preparing for CCBA certification, this will not be of like help because you will not have case study based questions as part of your CCBA, but it is like I mean, you will definitely have around 30 to 35 questions in your CBAP that is related to the case study. And this is one of the most dreaded part. Like when it comes to the preparation, you go through the element, input, output, and technique. But when it comes to case study, many folks they lose their confidence, like because sometimes the question will go for 2 pages, 3 pages, and there'll be a lot of data, images, tables, and everything, and all you have is only 2 minutes to solve a question. So many folks they get disappointed or like demotivated looking into the case study based questions. But we at the Canvas team, let us tell you that like case study based questions are one of the easiest questions wherein you can score 100 out of 100. So if there are 120 questions in CBAP, if you encounter case study based questions like close to 30-35, those questions will be the most easiest than the rest 75 questions. So if you're getting 35, rest 75, right? So the reason why we would say case study based questions is the easiest is because at the end of the day, they are going to test your BAPOC knowledge. Though it is a scenario, real world scenario, like they will give you an example, like Thomas is working as a business analyst in Acme Corporation. Likewise, they'll give you a context, they will give you the business need, they will give you the business objectives, they will give you the lot of data. So you should not waste your time reading all that data. You should just skim over. So that is the thing which we advise. See, the question can go for 2 pages or 3 pages. So don't waste your time going first. I mean, the biggest blunder which everybody makes is that like they waste their time reading all the content. So our first recommendation would be that, or the first tip would be like, please don't waste your time reading all the content, because sometimes you can almost 50 to 60, or maybe I'll say 70 to 80% of the case study based questions can be directly answered. You may not trust me, but let me tell you, just by reading the question and without understanding the context or reading those paragraphs, you will be able to answer it. But ideally, this all stems down the confidence which in order to work on the case study based questions, the confidence if you need to have, you should be very good in all the knowledge areas and the techniques. And what level of preparation is needed? Within seconds, like maybe 15 to 30 seconds, that's the max you should take when you encounter a task related question. For instance, if the scenario is about the first task, BAPM, define B approach. So how long it takes for you to come up with like input and output and name of the element. So automatically, the very moment when you see it is defined B approach, the input business need should flash in your mind. and automatically the output and the name of the element like approach, assumptions, risk, and all these things should flash. So this amount, I mean, ideally, when you're preparing for the CBAP certification, if you can remember the input and output and the elements within 30 seconds, then you're ready for the final examination. So for case study based questions, the approach or the preparation, there is nothing, you need not prepare separately for case study based questions. Whatever you're preparing, the same content for the actual examination for the other type of scenario based questions, right? The same logic and the same content is enough. So with that note, let me go through some 3 or 4 case study based questions today, and let me I'll tell you like how you should, like what should be the strategy in order to uh, handle this case study based questions. So for those folks who are like seeing, I mean, ideally I have just opened test series question bank from Tech Canvas, and unlike other question banks that are in the market, the Tech Canvas question series is like actually mimics the real IIBA standard. So more questions, like we have 1,000+ questions in this question bank. So if you practice this 1,000+ questions, we are sure that like if you can score 65 to 70% in Tech Canvas mock question bank series, then definitely you will be able to clear the final examination, because we are preparing you for the worst. So you will we'll take any one particular line from BEPOC, we'll convert it into a scenario based question, and you can find all those references in our question bank. So now I have opened the case study section from our question bank, and it has close to 30+ case studies. So 30 into 5, 150+ case study based questions. So let's start with our first case study now for this session. It is about automation of oil demand forecasting. So I'm just going to click on it. And as you can see, the case study based questions, I'm warning you now itself, don't be in your comfort zone that like case study based question will be only for a page or nothing. In my actual examination, that my case study based questions were like close to 3 pages. So this is how the case study based questions will look like. So you will have an introduction. Sometimes it will be a table or a use case diagram or a data flow diagram, or it can be a financial calculation. It can be anything. I mean, they can touch upon any areas from any knowledge areas or any technique, and they can come up with a scenario based question. So as you guys can see, uh, what is the first thing which you need to do? Skim through the content. You have only 2 minutes for one question. So you cannot waste your 10-15 minutes reading, understanding, going through the data. That is like, that would be a blunder. So what I would recommend you is that like the very moment when the case study based questions flash, all you need to do is skim through. So how will you have to skim through the content? First, understand there is an introduction session. There is some product array and details. Okay. There is an assist. Fine. There is a problem statement. Fine. There is a business requirement. Then they have a problem and they have some expectations. Okay, fine. And then they have given you some diagram, or what this diagram, it looks like more of like I would say this diagram is like a solution blueprint. Okay, because looking at the notations, is it gain sarsen or anything? I'm not sure, I'm confused, so I'm just leaving it. Okay, fine. Now let me go to the first question. Which of the below listed technique is best suited for making reports for the reporting module? So I'll see what is reporting module. I'll just scroll up. 1 second. Oops. Just a second, guys. Okay. So here I'll check where is the reporting module, and I don't see, yeah, reporting module is mentioned here. But I'll first read the question and see if you can answer it. If you have to read the, I mean, should you comprehend first and then come back and answer? But here it talks about report 1 to report 10. Okay, fine. And when I look into the question, it is asking me which is the best technique for reporting. So now I understood that like this question is a straightforward question. So in that case, I need not read the context. So here, since the options are not something that is there in this paragraph, for instance, if they are giving me like a reporting data dictionary or maybe demand correction, oil demand forecasting, then maybe I may have to read this. But here, if I look into the options, concept modeling, data flow diagram, data modeling, data mining is not something that is referenced in this particular paragraph, because this is something about a technique. So now I just want you to, unmute yourself and tell me which among this technique, ideally if you have already completed your preparations, CBAP of you're preparing, which technique is closely related to making reports? Please don't type, because I'll have no access to the chat screen since I'm sharing my screen. So maybe you can unmute, and I also want you to tell me the logic why you would prefer that particular technique.
Data flow diagram. Can you hear me?
Why data flow
data
diagram?
flow diagrams. Because data flow diagrams shows how data is flowing from source to point to where it's going to be utilized and a destination. So you should have like a source and a sink, and of course resources that process that data.
Got it. Any other answers?
Data mining, because it helps to get meaningful insights.
Perfect. So the answer here is data mining. The reason why you have to choose data mining is because data mining is all about finding out the patterns. And the last step in data mining as per Babok is the data visualization. And if you see data mining second or third line in Babok, right, it clearly tells out that like data mining is used for making reporting purposes, and also that reference is already there. So here the best answer would be data mining. Data flow diagram is not the best answer, because data flow diagram is never used for reporting purpose. Data flow diagram talks about how the information flows from one end to the other end. It is not at all a reporting tool. So now the second approach, which I would say, not always you will be able to find out the right answer. Sometimes you may get confused in the actual examination. So what works in the IIBA thing is that out of 4 options, 2 options can be easily eliminated. So in that case here, concept modeling and data flow diagram can be easily eliminated because they both are out of context. They are not at all related to the reports. So you can eliminate it. And then you will have option C and D. And I'll tell you the way how the IIBA question, the way how they have said the IIBA examination is in a way, one will be a good answer and the other one will be the best answer. So you always need to choose the best answer. So you should never fall into the trap. The reason what happens is that like sometimes they will give you a technique called as reporting module. So then very moment when you see report, then you will go and click on report, or maybe they'll give you Power BI, Tableau, or something like that. They may give you that option. So what happens is that like even though you wouldn't have seen that term in Babok, but you feel that is closely related to reports, and you will go and click on Power BI. So that is like one of the mistakes which many business analysts they commit in the actual examination. Don't fall into the trap. Always stick to the content or stick to the references which are there in the actual Babok. So I told you sometimes both the options will be from the Babok context, but data modeling will be the good answer, but data mining will be the best answer. So your job is to always choose the best answer. So that's what I told you. Eliminate, and in other 2 options, find out which is the best reference. I mean, if you are relating it with that of Babok, which is the best answer. So here the data mining is the answer, and let's check. So data mining is an analytic process that examines large amount of data. So this is like a technique related question. Now let's go to the second question. So here they're asking me database module, and once again if you see it is like the options. When I look into the options, it talks about strategic, conceptual, logical, and physical. So for this particular question also, I need not look into the content. So here they're asking me about the data modeling technique, and they're asking me what is database module. So any guess? What do you guys think is the best answer here?
Conceptual model, conceptual data model.
Conceptual data model, fine. Any other answers? The answer here is physical data model. because if you refer Babok, a physical data model is used for technical requirements. So when you look into the database module, the best answer would be the physical data model. And this is a straightforward question from Babok. And there are three models that are referenced in Babok: physical model, logical model, and strategic data model. Physical data model is for the technical requirements. Logical data model is for the business requirements or for the business rules and everything. And strategic data model is a model that can be used for data dictionary and other stuff. So let's check the answer. So this is a tricky question, and someone who can answer this can be looked upon as a well-read Babok individual. So let's go to the next question. So now if you read this question, right, once again, it is a technique related question. So in the actual examination also, if you encounter a case study based question, there will be 5 to 6 case study based questions for 5 to 6 questions for one case study. And all the 6 questions will be related to one knowledge area. And most of the time it will be a technique related case study. So in that case, all the 5 questions will be like inquiring upon like which is the best technique or which technique will solve this particular problem. So likewise, those kind of questions you can encounter. So now if you see, Phil is asking Jack to submit a report of expected solution benefit, cost of creating the solution, cost of operating. What is the best technique in order to do this task? Expected solution benefit. So this word expected is a clue.
Estimation.
Estimation.
That's all. So if you do the elimination, SWOT analysis can be eliminated, risk analysis can be eliminated. And estimation and financial analysis, some folks will fall into the trap of financial analysis. So financial analysis is something that you do during the project, like cost benefit analysis, return on investment, net present value. So those terms are called as financial analysis. But estimation is something that you do from before the start of the project. So that's when the expected solution benefits, those things can be evaluated as part of the estimation technique. So that's all about it. Now let's go to the next question. Okay, now they're asking you with respect to the sponsor definition in Babok and the information in the case study, who is the sponsor for BAL? Okay, this question I cannot guess, I cannot answer because now I need to understand. And they said use the information in the case study. So this is the clue. So whenever they say use the information in the case study, then definitely you will have to go and read. So now first look into the answers. Okay, so in the answer, there is a reference about Phil, Matthew, and Fell. So now how will I navigate is I'll go to that particular section where I can see references about Phil, Matthew, and Fell. So when I scroll up, right, I see this particular paragraph talks about Matthew, Phil, Fell. Okay, all the 3 folks are involved. So now can you tell me who is the sponsor?
Well,
You're saying Fell?
Phil.
Phil. Okay. Why Phil?
Phil will be accountable for all the commercial.
Perfect.
So maybe
For the commercial.
Perfect. So when you look into sponsor definition in Babok, sponsor can do 2 things. Sponsor is accountable, sponsor is the approver. So whenever you see the keyword accountable, then in that case you can close your eyes and choose Phil will be the sponsor, because sponsor responsibility as per Babok is accountability and approval authority. That's all. So sponsors are responsible, accountable. I told you, right? The keyword is accountable. So always, whenever you read Babok, always underline those keywords. Like for each of the task, for each of the stakeholder, they would have given you some keywords. Now let me go to the next task. Okay, next question. So now they're asking you something technical related question. So if you're following gain Sarsen notation, and if you keep forecasting process as the central application, demand generation can be best described by which of the below listed options? So this question also, I'll have to first look into the diagram. So gain Sarsen notation, there are 2 types of notation, gain Sarsen and Jordan as part of the data flow diagram. And you guys can see forecasting process. So where is forecasting? So this is forecasting. So the forecasters, okay. And so forecasters is getting the input from demand generation. So how will you call this demand generation? So demand generation can be best described by what options, whether it is an input data, external agent, data source, or none of the above.
External agent.
External
Okay,
agent.
I mean, this is a straightforward question, because if you see Gain-Sarsen notation, right? I'll just show you what is Gain-Sarsen notation. So you guys can see, right? This is how the Gain-Sarsen notation is depicted. So you guys can see data store is represented in the form of a half rectangle, and entities are there, data flow is there. So entities, you can see, right, how entity is represented, how process is represented, how data store is represented. So in this case, this looks like more of like a external agent. That's all. So with this, I told you, right, you have completed one case study. So did you go through all the content? No. So almost 60 to 70% of the case study based questions in the actual BABOK can be directly answered without reading this context. So maybe there may be 2 or 3 questions wherein you may need to do some mathematical calculations and everything, but I'll tell you most of the questions can be directly answered. So this is the best strategy that would work in the examination. Don't waste your time in reading all the unwanted content. Now let's do one more case study based question. So let me take modernization of insurance system in Agile. So let's see which knowledge area this case study is all about. So there is a project brief, problem description, there is a current process flow, business analysis approach, business analysis deliverable, process flow diagram. Okay, now let's go to the question. Fine. So now they've given you, the client asked BAPL to assure that the application must not allow a closed claim to be reclaimed. This statement from the client will be recorded by BAPL as what? So now they've given you this particular requirement, and then they're asking you, what is this statement called as?
Business rule.
Business rule.
Okay, what kind of business rule?
Operating guideline.
Okay, are you sure it is an operating guideline? Okay, for some reasons why. Let me check 1 second.
That should be a definition rule.
Okay, you think it is a definitional business rule? Fine.
Oh no, I think it's operation. I'm wrong. Yeah, she's right.
Okay, any other answers other than business rule?
User story.
Why are you going with user story?
It's like a feature.
Perfect. So the answer here is the user story, because even if we are not 100% sure. So let's start with the elimination. Okay, I will eliminate business objective, because business objective as per BABOK, it has to use SMART framework: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. So here if I see it is not qualifying to be a SMART framework, so I'll eliminate it. This is not an epic. So this doesn't look like an epic, allowed to a close claim to be written. This is not at all looking like an epic. So I'll eliminate it. So two things are easily eliminated. Now I need to take a choice between user story or a business rule. There are two types of business rule. Definitional business rule. So definitional business rule is something that defines something. So here, is it defining anything? No. So in that case, definitional business rule is like discarded. The second type of business rule is behavioral business rule. Behavioral business rule talks about a guideline. In this particular situation, what will you do? What you have to do? Just a second. So it talks about what will you do in that particular situation, what is the workaround and everything. So it talks about that in detail. So I don't think this gives me, like, in this particular situation, how should I operate. So that information is missing. So this doesn't look like a business rule. So even if I'm not 100% sure, I'll go with the user story feature, because this looks like more of like a requirement. So let's check the answer. So as high as 70% of the people end up in dilemma between business rule and user story. Business rules are set of statements that indicate whether something can be done or provide criteria and conditions for making decision. So here there is no conditions. So that is how you can, if they ask in the actual examination also, look for a condition or a scenario or a guideline. Only then it would qualify as a business rule. Okay. Now let me go to the next question. So now they've given you a diagram. So this is like the most repetitive exam question. Like always, there will be a diagram, and most probably it can be a data flow diagram or a use case diagram. So now they have given you a diagram, and they are now asking you what kind of diagram this is all about. Is it context, data flow diagram, sequence diagram, or activity diagram?
Sequence diagram.
Okay. What is the difference between sequence diagram and data flow diagram?
Sequence is a business steps, meaning like what should happen next as part of the business process, versus a context is more so between the systems, like how systems can communicate with each other.
Perfect. And how about data flow diagram?
Data flow diagrams is how a data would flow from one of the entities to the
One
other,
entity
meaning
to the another. Okay. So your bet is on a sequence diagram. Any other answers? So the answer here is data flow diagram, because this is a Jordan notation. And sequence diagram in Babok, you have synchronous call and asynchronous call. So here there is no reference about synchronous and asynchronous call. So I will eliminate sequence diagram going by that logic.
You have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I see the options context diagram and data flow diagram. What is the difference between both of them?
So she mentioned, right? So data flow diagram is all about how data flows between one entity to the other entity. But the disadvantage of data flow diagram is that, like, data flow diagram will not tell you what is the first step, what is the second step, and third step. For instance, here I don't know whether reimbursement is the first step, or update status is the first step, or like inquiry is the first step. I'm completely confused. But at the same time, sequence diagram, it talks about the sequence of actions that the process has to go through. So in sequence diagram, it is clear to me, there should be an indication that, like, this is the first process, this is the second process, and this is the third process. So that is the difference between sequence diagram and data flow diagram. You got it?
Satish, sorry to interrupt. Your screen is not visible.
How about now?
No, I think, you're not presenting. I think you have stopped presenting. That's why it's not
One
visible.
second. Let me share again. Soumya, how about now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So you understood the difference between data flow and sequence. The disadvantages of data flow diagram is like, that's why they came up with sequence diagram. So in data flow diagram, you don't tell me like what is the first process or second process or third process, because the sequence is not at all mentioned there. It just talks about the flow of information. But in sequence diagram, you clearly tell me like this is the first process, this is the second process, and the second process. And that's why there are two types of calls, synchronous and asynchronous call. So synchronous call, you wait for the response and then only you send the second message. Asynchronous call, you don't wait for the response, you keep on sending messages. So that is the difference between data flow and sequence diagram. Clear?
Yes,
Okay.
that's clear. But what I was saying was the data flow diagram and context, because on Babok, I mean, they have
Okay.
context gains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. So context diagram can be used. It's like context modeling. So context modeling is used when you are working with some domain and whenever you're dealing with a noun and a verb concept. So if I have to put it very simply, you have to talk about blockchain. So in that case, you know that like the noun can be block and the other verb can be encryption, decryption, and everything. So when you put a diagram connecting all the nouns, noun means the subjects or the categories in your particular domain, that is called as the context diagram. Clear? So there will be always a noun and a verb.
Yes, it's clear.
And it is used only for like when you work in the domain and if you want to uh, uh, explain one particular subject or the category. For instance, let's take library. So you want to talk about the library process. So the nouns will be the library card, librarian, the book, types of book. So that is all noun. The verb will be like buy. I mean, I'm getting that book, right? So maybe the monthly subscription can be the verb, and buying a book, borrowing a book, returning a book. So whatever the actions which those noun commit, those can be referenced as the verb form. So now let me go to the next question. So now if you see here, okay, let me minimize this and I'll. So which method of estimation is BAPL most likely to use in this case? So when you see in this case is a reference for you to understand the context. So this question, I cannot take a guess. So I will look for the reference. So you need to do an estimation. They have given you all the techniques that are related to the estimation. So now let me go up. I need to find out the reference about estimation somewhere here. So now let's skim through. I don't think in project brief they will talk about the estimation. In problem description, let me see. Is there anywhere estimation mentioned? No. So in current process, no way estimation will be there. So in the B approach, I'll have to go through to see if somewhere any comment made on the estimation style. No epic into manage user story. Fine. Business analysis. Oh, the best thing you can do is like you can also use Control F in your examination also. So Control F, and you can search for that particular word so that you don't waste your time. So now I'm going through this. Even here, I don't find anything related to estimation. And when I come here, I can see high level estimation is mentioned. So that's all. High level estimation is mentioned. So it must include high level estimation. So now
Rough
looking
order
into this technique.
magnitude.
Perfect. Rough order attitude or
Uh, the best guess is rough order magnitude because it's a high level estimation.
perfect. And what is the option? So A or C?
It's a top down, right? Once again, short customer. So this is a process. So this will be counted top down. C.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So according to Babcock, top down or ROM are both high level estimation, because with very limited information you can come up with the first round of estimation. Those techniques are called as high level estimation techniques. So these both qualify. Very easiest question it is. Now let me go to the last question here. So now they're asking you that like BAPL had a discussion with the sponsor. So it is a scenario based question. And with the help of sponsor, Matthew has created some metrics. One of the metric is time taken to reimburse claims. So what is the task Matthew is doing? Whether it is measure solution performance, analyze performance measure. So this is related to solution evaluation knowledge area. So which is the task he's doing? Like how, if you're collecting some metric, what is that task called? I'll give you a clue. Solution evaluation.
Measure
Measure
solution.
solution.
Solution performance.
Measure solution performance.
Measure
Measure
solution
solution.
performance, because that is the task wherein you come up with the performance measure. So let's check the answer. Yeah, that's all. So these kind of questions is what you can encounter in your actual examination. They will give you a scenario and then they will ask you what kind of task you're doing. So only if you remember the input and output, it is more than enough for you to, like, that's what I told you. If the very moment when you see this word metric and you see that, like, okay, measure solution performance, automatically the input and output should flash in your mind within 10-15 seconds. Then in that case you can save your time also, because some of the scenario based questions will be quite tough and you will not be able to understand what are they asking. So what you can do is, like, you can try to save your time by solving these kind of easy questions, right? You try to solve it within 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and save your time for all the difficult ones. And some of the, there'll be at least minimum 10 questions which will be mathematical oriented questions, wherein you will have to calculate the return on investment, or you may have to come up with the percentage. Those kind of things will be quite calculation intensive. So but though you have an online calculator, but you can save up your time by solving, I mean, by preparing the input, output, and name of the elements. So now let's do one more last case study, and I will take up all your questions related to the certification or the case study based questions. So case study based questions, if you ask me, it can come from any knowledge area or it can come from any technique. So there is no separate preparation for this. What are the laws? I mean, the if you are preparing for scenario based questions, that it's enough. That itself is enough. That would suffice. So now let's do one case study about Ritz Hotel Corporation. So I see it is like Ritz Hotel Corporation is there, full service lodging, select service lodging, extended stay lodging, all inclusive, timeshare. They have so many properties. I can see a graph. And what is this graph? It talks about the revenues being negative. Okay, yeah, I can see from 2012 onwards the revenue is low. And I can see IBM logo also in it. Fine. And then Pearson Associates is the global management consultancy. Fine. Okay, fine. I am not going to read all that. Now let me go to the question. Greta, the senior BA, suggested that they divide into two teams and get started with assess. Okay, fine. Team wants to analyze the efficiency and effectiveness of the process, understand all the value add and the non-value add. So which of the below techniques would be the most appropriate choice to start off? So now if you see, they're asking you, you need to do a process analysis. But before doing the process analysis, what is the first thing that you need to do? Or like which technique would be the best choice? So you need to look for process analysis technique. And here they're asking you how you can do a context level analysis. So here the context is related to the hotel system, hotel process. So once again, noun, verb, and everything you need to find out. So which is the best technique? If you can get this question right, I'll tell you you are ready for the examination. This is one of the toughest questions.
Is it the BPMN?
Okay, why are you going with BPMN?
Because so as an initial analysis or research, you need to see who are the actors and how they are acting between themselves, and you know how the overall process flow is moving.
Perfect
And
reasoning.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But why not data flow diagram, which is like level 0 is called the context diagram?
No, level 0 diagram will tell you how the information flows between the entities or the process. It doesn't talks about like efficiency, value add, what is value add, non-value add, like who is contributing, who, like what is the trigger point. Those information you will not get from the data flow diagram. It just talks about the flow of information. Other than that, it doesn't give you any other substantial info that is needed for process analysis. Clear? Let me go to the next question.
No,
So
can you just
now,
give explanation for that?
which one?
The previous question.
Okay. So here I have no idea. Okay. So imagine I have no clue about all the 4 techniques. Value stream mapping, it looks good because in value stream mapping, it talks about value add and non-value add. But here they are not asking me what is the best process analysis technique. They are asking me what is the best technique in order to start off. So I'm going to do value and non-value add. So in that case, I'll eliminate this. SIPOC, supplier input, process output, and everything. This is also related to a process analysis. So this is what I'm doing as part of the second step. But the question is not at all related to process analysis. Question is related to the context level analysis. So this can also be eliminated. Data flow diagram can also be eliminated because it doesn't give me the information. So even if I have no idea about this BPMN, if I go with my elimination technique, I have an answer. Now, if I know BPMN is the best answer, the reason why BPMN is the best answer, because BPMN is what? Business process modeling and notation. It is like a umbrella of all the UML diagrams, class diagram, sequence diagram, context diagram, and all, everything can be represented as BPMN. So in order to understand the context, what are you going to do? So entire umbrella can be called as the BPMN: class diagram, object diagram, sequence diagram, interaction diagram. All those diagrams can come under this umbrella. And if you use BPMN 2.0, you will be able to completely understand the entire context of that particular process. Clear?
Yeah, but see in that BAP book 50 techniques, do you have a technique like this? No. It is like an umbrella of techniques which you're
Yes, yes.
telling.
So we don't have a technique, but here this is the best answer.
Okay.
I told you, right, there is always a good answer and a best answer. But this is not a technique. BPMN is not at all a technique. But this is the best answer in this context.
Yeah, this is where all the trouble is.
I told you there is always a good and best answer, and if we rely on our BA experience, we'll always click on the good answer only. But if we rely on what we read from BAPOC, we'll click on the best answer. And ideally, at the end of the day, the objective is to clear the certification, right? And we'll have to stick with what is there in the BAPOC, though we may or we may not agree with the content, but still. So now let's go to the next question. You need to create a list of stakeholder with a list of analyst roles and responsibilities who are internal and external. Which is the best technique for doing this? So this is a straightforward question. This is a
Stakeholder
CCBA
list
question.
and maps.
That's all. This is a CCBA question. Any other answers?
Please.
Okay. The answer is scope modeling. Stakeholder list and maps was the most easiest answer. And do you think in the IIBA CBAP they will give you these kind of questions wherein within seconds you will be able to click on the answer? Stakeholder list and maps, you can come up with a list of the stakeholders. But here the hidden question is like, who are internal and external to the organization and which are all the organizational roles impacted by the change. So that is covered under the scope modeling only, right? Scope modeling, in scope, out of scope.
But when we do a stakeholder list or maps, like a stakeholder matrix,
Yes,
uh,
we do a
over there,
stakeholder matrix. But there you don't talk about who is internal and external. You create an onion diagram and everything, but you don't talk about who is impacted by the change, right? That is covered under scope modeling only.
okay.
See, till this first line of the question, or maybe till this part, I can agree that like the answer is stakeholder list and maps. But after reading this one, who is impacted by the change and everything, then automatically it goes to strategy analysis. Till here, the question is related to BAPM. So I know it is a stakeholder engagement approach. But when I see impacted by the change, organizational roles impacted by the change, it is taking me to a different tangent. Strategy analysis, define change strategy. That's why I always advise. Very moment when you read automatically, if you can finalize the answer, 100% it will be the wrong answer. I'll go to the next question. So which of the influences has the most profound bearing on the dipping revenue? So this I cannot answer. So I'll have to, I know that like somewhere the revenue is dipping. Yeah, fine, I can see it here. So 5 consecutive years, all the 5 properties have been posting negative revenues. Mounting operational cost and restrictive government policies and taxation are making recovery impossible. So now what category this will fall into? Industry
Macroeconomic.
structure, competitors, political or macroeconomic factors.
Macroeconomic.
Fourth one.
Macroeconomic.
Okay, once again, you can go through what are the
Okay.
reasons. Mounting operational cost, restrictive government policies and taxation.
Political and regulatory environment.
The political and regulatory environment because of the
Yes.
tax.
So
Political
the
and
answer here is political
regulatory.
and regulatory environment because here it regulatory, taxation, restrictive government policies. So that is also regulatory. So that is the clue. And what is macroeconomic factors?
But taxation comes in regulatory environment.
No, okay, it's and, right? If it is or, you can take a guess. It is and. So here you have restrictive government policies and then and taxation. So restrictive government policies itself is giving you a clue that like you are working in a regulatory kind of environment. And taxation, that also gives you a clue that like it is regulated. So taxation is making your recovery impossible. I'll go to the next question. The last question. So to increase the potential value, Pearson Associates had laid one possible recommendation in order to operate at reduced capacities. So which of this is prove vital in pushing the recommendation? So they reached out to a global management consultancy. I saw it here and they gave a recommendation. So how can I ensure my recommendation goes to the next stage? Very easy question. CCBA question.
Consensus among stakeholders.
That is a real world answer. That is the good answer.
Business case? No, business case.
Okay. Business
If I'm
case.
reducing the capacities, which mean I need to have consensus.
Okay. I mean, in the real world, you will work for the consensus, but according to Babcock,
If we
so
need
what is the best
consensus,
answer?
which means customer satisfaction should be there.
Yeah, in the real world, that is the best answer. Consensus among stakeholders in the real world is the best answer. But according to Babcock, this is not something which we'll work on. So you need something I mean, theoretically, what is something that you need to create in order to push your recommendation?
A business case, which will be a documentation.
Yes, that's all. Because business case is more of like a justification document, and ideally once the business need is identified, a business case document is the justification document that a business analyst needs to prepare in order to justify like which option we have selected, and we come up with the cost benefit analysis, benefit, potential value and everything in it, and it gets approved by the stakeholders, and finally once the business case is approved, then the project starts. So that's all about case study, guys. So as I told you, your current preparations is more than enough. So I mean, I have now exposed you to like 3+ case studies. So like this is how the case study based questions. Like there is no like you need not prepare anything extra. Whatever you prepare for your scenario based questions, the same preparation would suffice for the case study based questions. And some case study based questions will have mathematical calculations like addition, subtraction, percentage. So those all things you'll have to definitely go through the formulas, financial analysis technique. Those formulas you need to go through. So that's all about it. And let me tell you, the very moment when you click on start the examination, third or fourth question will be the case study based questions. And they wantedly, they will place it at the third or fourth question in order to break your confidence. So don't fall into the trap. The very moment when you click on start third and fourth, if you see case study based questions, immediately bookmark it, complete all the smaller questions, and then come back and do all these case study based questions at the later stage. In case if you're feeling that like those questions, because normally I mean not only IIBA, in all the competitive certification examinations, all the difficult questions will be placed during the start of the session in order to break the exam taker's confidence. So this is also a golden tip which I wanted to give you. Always, like, the difficult questions will be placed at the beginning, and don't waste your time, don't fret over it. Just skip it or like bookmark it. Complete all the, because once you complete all the smaller questions, you will get the confidence. And now when you go back and read the same question, right, you will understand, like, okay, fine, this guy is like planning to trap me with this particular question. You will be able to find out those patterns and you will be able to connect the dots. So that's all about it. Thanks for joining. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
If there are any formulas in the case studies, I mean, will those be given, or do we need to
No, there will be
study
no
some
formulas.
stuff?
No formulas. Like, you need to remember the return on investment, cost benefit analysis, net present value, total
Those
cost of
things, yeah.
ownership. Yeah, all those
Hmm.
formulas you need to remember. And sometimes it is
Okay.
just simple addition only. Total cost, total benefit, all. You'll have to just simply add it.
Okay. Fine.
Do we have any other question?
So did you find the session useful?
Yes, Satish.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, one question is
Yes, I did.
from Dave, is regarding the use cases you mentioned. There are certain use cases which will have financial calculations and so forth. Do you have any examples in the list of all the use cases which can be attempted to work on those type of analysis type of questions?
Yes, we have it in our question bank, like financial analysis case study based questions, wherein 3 or 4 financial analysis, wherein we ask the calculate the cost benefit analysis. We'll give you 2 options. Like, for instance, Acme Corporation wants to buy a software, build a software. So buying a software, license cost, maintenance, support cost, we'll give you some numbers. And if you have to build it, what is the cost? And then we'll ask you, the plan is for 5 years, 6 years, and 7 years. So then you will have to compute and find out and tell us which is the best option. Because if I buy the software for 5 years, it may take me 2 million. If I'm building it for 5 years, it may take 2.5 million. So you will have to choose which is, like, from the cost benefit perspective, which is the best option. So those kind of questions you can get in the actual examination, wherein you will have to find out for 5-6 years or maybe 10 years, 15 years perspective, whether buying it from the outside or building it is the best option. And it is just simple addition only. There is no logic for it. I mean, simply you will have to add all the cost.
Yes. So in your question bank, do you have any such use case which you can point out, or we have to go through all?
Ideally, I will say these kind of things, instead of, yeah, there are case studies in our question bank, but my recommendation is that, like, these all things, instead of looking, I want you to look at it from the holistic perspective. Like, once you understand, like, these are the questions, I want you to be prepared for all the use cases that may emanate from that particular thing. Because what we have in our question bank is fine, but the question bank which is prepared by IIBA changes every 3 months. So I want you to take this as just a basic thing, but we are I told you, right, we are preparing you for the worst only. So, like, once you see this kind of questions, you have to always think that, like, it may not be on the similar kind, because since they're changing the question pattern every 3 months, you have to know that, like, you have to understand the gist of it, but expect something on the exam day. The question can be completely out of the box also, but you know that, like, you're prepared.
Okay, thank you.
So it was nice talking to you guys. So all the best with your preparations. So it's easy certification. You just need to put in some hard work and go through. And I know the journey will be all alone, like remembering, forgetting most of the things and everything. But at the end of the day, when you click on when you go for the examination, and when you click on the submit button, and when you see that pop up, congratulations, you have cleared the examination. Nothing in the world can beat that feeling. So as they say, right, cloud 9 and everything. So once you see that pop up, right, all your hard work, all those 2-3 months, the hard work which you put and everything, you will be able to see those results. So I'm just wishing and hoping that like one day you guys will definitely see that pop up in your exam screen. So all the best and best wishes. And if you have any queries, you can reach out to Soumya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Satish.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.